Welcome to the second episode of Digital Push Podcast. I'm your host Shivani, and today we are diving into the fascinating journey of evolution of design and advertising globally, discussing the current landscape of designs and digital market from traditional to modern approach. To shed light on this, we have Karan, seasoned designer and marketer who have experience over a decade in this field. Karan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Karan, can you give us brief overview on art and design and advertising and how it has evolved over the years?
Sure. So to understand, so these are very casually thrown terms, right? Design and
Right.
art. And when we are conversing in daily life, these are the terms that comes to your rescue whenever you want to describe something, which is you see something very interesting. It's very artistic. This is well designed, but we don't understand what exactly is the definition of art or design. And to understand that, we have to go back to few centuries back in time, right? And our collective ancestors, right? The cavemen, what they used to do, that was pure expression, right? What they draw in these caves, what were their daily life,
Right.
So that you can say the first piece of art. For me, I consider it to be the first piece of art,
Okay.
right?
Because there was no speech involved and there was only drawing of pictures and with the help of pictures they used to communicate.
And then comes the part where cavemen started developing these tools, right? Through metal, through stone, through
Correct.
wood, and that became the first discipline of design,
Okay.
the product design. Right? So that was the first time we saw that how we design a functional thing with an intent to do something, right? Some function to be involved that is somewhat derivation of art, but a design.
Okay.
And after that, let's say in terms of advertising, if I want to, let's talk about the religious scriptures. Okay, so that was the part when we started integrating the content. We started communicating what we want to say on masses. So there were illustrations, patterns, right, and small floral designs, right. So these all things came in the picture in terms of design. It's also advertising, right. The form was not pure, what we perceive advertising today, but that was more or less like a start of a new era.
Correct.
And then we come to the part of industrialization, and that is when the need for the pure advertising began. That we need to design certain magazine ads, right, newspaper ads, posters, hoardings, and we want to reach to the masses. And what we want to communicate: here's my product, come and buy it. This is what you need. You can, you want to make your lifestyle better.
And design also, help us to basically it attracts. Better the design, better the.
Yeah. Definitely. Aesthetics are very important, right? How do you attract a common man, and how do you make them feel that this is something I want to buy?
Correct.
Right? There is abundance of options, and that is when the definition also come in the picture. So when I'm talking about art, so an artist, whoever is designing a sculpture or a painting, they have a motive to express something which is very emotion driven. Right. When the design, the function is involved, right? It's more rational compared to what is art is supposed to do. So whenever you see something of a painting or a sculpture, you need a viewer, you need audience to make sense of it. Where with design, you don't need anyone.
So basically, in one of the factor it is emotions are attached, and in another factor it's just that it's appealing and it's.
It is appealing. It is there is function, but doesn't mean there is no emotion.
Okay.
Right. So let's talk about doors only. Right. So door knobs, what they are supposed to do. The design is very simple.
Correct.
Turn a lever, it opens a door. Right. Now that can be done by a kid, an adult, an old person, or even you can teach that to a dog. Right. So the function is same. There are multiple people who can use that function to open the door. Where with art, the definition changes with each and every person. Right? The expression, the emotions are very different.
Okay.
Right? Design is supposed to trigger a function because there is an intent, where art is supposed to trigger an emotion.
Right.
Right. So that is the like the regulations. Just this very pure definition came in around the industrialization. The structure happened around World War One.
Hmm.
And yeah, like so it's keep on evolving after that time. And
Right.
today the what we have, again we have defined the definition, right? And now we are again going to that gray area. What is design? What is art?
What are the key difference between modern designs and designs which were design approaches which were taken previously?
So to understand it, like we have to understand what were the applications back in the days, right? So before the technology, the digital advent, we used to heavily rely on print media. Right?
Yes.
So print media, when I say, so there are newspapers, magazines, right? Posters, hoardings. So these were like your go-to ad applications.
True.
That so these all things have a very regulated approach. So whenever someone is designing an ad for a newspaper, they have to consider that there are certain restrictions regarding the printing, right? Because the printing process were not that advanced. We don't know how much accurate the fonts will be going in the newspaper, how accurate the photos, illustration will be printed on mass level, right? Whatever colors so and so designer using, right? The other designer might use like different shade of it. Right? There was no way to measure the different codes of colors, the different pastels, right? So that were all the very many restrictions when it comes to printing. What happened with digital is like we don't have to worry about all those things.
True.
Right now
You
we
see
can,
again.
yeah, like we don't, we
Yeah.
can legit take one color of red, right, and the same color
We
code
can
will
use
be,
it everywhere.
yeah, like
Because you just need to remember the code number.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all what you have to do.
the accuracy, right? So printing back in the days were like more or less, so it was CM/K. Now
Right.
CM/K requires like you have to get like certain dies done, right? Cylinders has to be made in proportion to whatever your requirements were. Now we have electric cylinders. Now we have the dies that were much more laser printed on metal, so you can achieve the most accurate designs, accurate patterns. Even like slightly thin logos get printed or embossed on a metal. Before, like, so printing and also the process was also lengthy, that I want to promote like so and so product, whatever the font I am choosing, whatever the colors I am choosing, and whatever the photo I have of the product, I keep it there. Now the second stage is that you have to consider how much amount of time your newspaper printing press will gonna take. And whatever newspaper you are choosing, given we have very limited resources to print
True.
certain things, so you have to bank everything on that ad. And the liberty that we have today, that we can take like a whole page of ad and put just one logo,
Correct.
it was not back then. It was very expensive. So what brands used to do is like, because of that space, we use as much space as possible and say as much as possible.
Like minimum space and maximum
Content.
content.
Yeah.
And today it's like just reverse.
Yeah. And now you have to consider the errors. Because of the lack of technology, you can't make sure that this ad will work the way you have perceived it.
Yeah.
And the process is so long, where with digital you don't have to wait so long, right?
You can reason everything in maybe minutes.
Yeah, like you have created an ad,
Yes.
you maybe like run on an Instagram, and that is like, and it's giving you real time metrics.
So correct. What was happening in design landscape in India then, and how we can compare it globally?
Global evolution of advertising or design was much more linear, right? So we had printing press, right? We started doing mass production. Then comes the radio, right? So radio marketing began. Then there is TV. When in India, what happened was, because of the British rule, we were not that progressive towards advertising. For us, it was more about, okay, whatever is happening in the West, when will it come to India? So we had not that freedom at that point to do whatever the kind of Indian contextual advertising that is supposed to be done, right? So that way we were following the UK trends. What happened in, I guess, around 1907, we got like the first printing press in India. Now the advertising back in those days for newspapers and all, this is more about whichever the shipments are coming from British, right? Or which where the political announcements are there, or there is some sort of a basic like weather forecast or something like that. Indian origin brand that started the newspaper was Bengal Gazette, right? So they started posting a lot more stuff about what is happening in India in context to India. While that was happening, the radio was already there in the global market, right? So we kind of got the printing press and the radio almost at the same time. So while we were trying to adapt to whatever is happening in print media, we already got something new application design wise, which is much more vocal, right? So now if I'm not wrong, the Akashvani was the first time when we started getting the news through radio. And radio was very accessible. The literacy rate was much more lower, right? So print media was not that much working because of that.
Correct.
Where the radio worked well, because it was directly communicating with your consumer. It was the regional language and it was much more accessible. It was not that expensive. I'm guessing more or less around the post-independence we started doing commercials on radio. At least around that time the world already got like some sort of a television.
Right.
US and UK and in general Europe were already started to experiment with the television commercials. So now that we are adapting to radio, we get television.
So we get like audio, video both.
Yeah, almost at the same time, right? So
yeah.
When the world was very linear with the design and advertising evolution, we were doing things simultaneously. And because of that, we had not got any chance to actually explore what is context to Indian advertising. Right? Whatever we did back in the days was very heavily influenced from whatever was happening in the West. That was completely derivation of Bauhaus movement and Swiss movement. Okay, these were the two very major movements that established whatever the regulations of designs are there. Right? And post that, I will say when the televisions came, and then our very own favorite Doordarshan came in India, right? And that is when the Indian brands have also started advertising, and we have to thank for that Ogilvy and Piyush Pandey. Right, these guys were the one who established what is the Indian advertising. How you make a commercial, make a script, make an ad that is very well rooted in Indian context. For that we have to understand, because India is a very diverse country. We have multiple states and we have multiple culture.
Yeah.
So what happened with that is whenever you go, let's say from Gujarat to Kerala, the language changes, the culture changes, the etiquette changes, and because of that the advertising can't be linear for everyone.
And it cannot be the same. It has to be like different.
You have to understand the context.
Yes.
If you're targeting a Gujarati person,
you have to make an ad in Gujarati language.
Language is there, right? What are the
Local
cultural, what is the nuance for Gujaratis? What is a nuance for Kerala? Now how do you tackle that?
Correct.
Right? So that whole dynamic came in with whatever the Western world was doing. Right? Now that whole thing took a lot of time to get established. I guess around 92, 2000 somewhat. We got like a lot of ads, and many of them started to come in Hindi.
Right, because it is our national language. Everybody at least understand Hindi.
Yeah, and that was the same time when so there was a time when TV came in India, and not a lot of people can afford it.
Correct.
And because Indian culture is somewhat revolves around socialization, community building. So people started to come together, and if I remember, it was during that Ramayana and Mahabharata were there.
Yeah.
Right? So people used to gather and watch a single
The
episode.
whole village used
or-
to sit together and watch the episode.
Yeah.
Correct.
and that is when whatever the ad is coming up, everyone knows, okay, this is this product, this is this ad, right?
Which jingle we used to remember.
Yeah, and that was like, that is a Indian context. And then you started evolving in terms of Indian advertising, right, with television. So multiple things were happening at the same time, and kind of after 2000 we got like grip of, okay, this is what should be done when you're doing like an ad or something in India, where US and UK or Europe on the other end were very minimal, very refined, very structured design. Where in India it's more about how many patterns are there, how many colors are there, and that comes from this diversity, right?
And I think it's difficult because we have like so many languages and all, whereas they just have to promote the ad in only one language, and that's English. That's it, complete, the end, full stop.
Yeah, and even like in English, or if you look at Swiss movement, right? So that was like because of Soviet Union whole conflict, the Swiss artists were also revolting against whatever was happening. So what happened? I'll just give you a bit of context. During World War One and World War Two, the designs were very much driven, government driven. Okay, so whole notion was they want to ask the public masses that you come and join the war, right? And that is when the design started to evolve. Why? Because whatever the ads the government were promoting, you must have seen the Uncle Sam poster,
Yes.
I want you, right? The USA Army recruitment poster. So these kind of posters are coming in. The UK people started doing the ads with a negative notion of making you feel guilty about not joining the war. Right, emoting that emotion is there, that if you don't join, you are not serving your country. So that gave birth to these designer groups which wanted to go against this emotion, and that gave birth to Bauhaus and Swiss movement, that we won't follow this so-called patriotism because you want to go war with another country. That was when we started using photographs with typography. Before that, traditional approach was using illustrations, human figures, and draw it with typos, because that was government's way.
Correct.
Designers started to use photographs to revolt
Showcase
against
it in a
it.
better way.
Yeah, and same thing with Indian context. What happened is, we learned everything that was happening in Europe and USA. What we knew back in the days was watercolor. With India, the watercolor was a big thing. If you see everywhere, even now you go to villages, you see wall art.
Yes.
So that was a big deal.
That was like 5,000, 6,000 old wall art, which is like of different colors and a combination of all. And that is all natural.
Yeah.
They used to make it from maybe
Gero colors are there, right? So and miniature art like pithora and everything.
Yes.
So these were all very traditionally rooted art forms. So what we did, we took those and then adapted those same discipline to the modern design. That became what Indian design aesthetics is. Whole aesthetics of multiple color layers, right, and different kind of fonts, but with Hindi, Gujarati, Devanagari style of fonts, which is the Indian design approach.
So digitalization have affected everything. So how it is affecting the field of design as well?
Okay, so first we have to understand what was happening back in the days in terms of design. The fundamentals of design is that there has to be emphasis on certain things, there has to be contrast, right? Balance is there, right? Unity is there. So these are like very basic principles of design. If you are designing a newspaper ad and you are designing a post for Instagram, Facebook, the fundamentals are same. Like you want to focus on something, the emphasis has to be given. How do you do that? You either take like a contrast, right? You take like a negative space, you play around with it. The typo, there is hierarchy. Where that come from? Bauhaus movement back in World War II.
Wow.
Right? So all these things still are the same. You even though the digital is everywhere, the old is not gone. It just has evolved, and it has aged even well. Now the process for any ad, right? So what is that? Like, if I want to get like a piece of like an offer, it's a bullseye. Okay, whenever a brand is doing like an ad, that is gonna be like a once in a month thing. This I want to say, this is what we have to offer, and this is why you need it. Right? It has to hit all the spots.
Minimum time.
Yeah, like this one ad only. You have done it, and it's done, right? Now what is happening with that is you can't do focus group. So what is focus group is, let's say my product is made for the people who are 25 and 45. Newspaper or magazines are not age, there is no age factor to it. So the people can be someone who is like a 20 years old, or someone who's reading that same magazine can be 70 years old. But my product is targeted to or 25 to 45. So I'm missing out that segment, and I'm advertising to the wrong people.
Right.
What happens with digital, you can decide who you want to show your ad to, when you want to show that ad to, how many times you want to show that ad to them. Okay. So it has become much more easier for any brand to create much more intimate relation with your consumer. But back in the days, it was hit and miss. Yeah, like you can't make sure like how many people you're talking to.
Like
through
you exactly know your targeted audience right now. Back then you were not like sure
Yeah.
about that.
Like you have to take that risk.
Yeah.
Right? Another thing with
Without strategy guides. And
like-
today it's like full with a full plan.
yeah, like so we had strategy even back then. Of course, research was a very big part of it. But what happens is like you can't make sure that whatever the newspaper you are choosing, right? Same thing that we discussed, right? With India, there are so many different cultural nuance. You can't put one ad and expect that
Everybody
everyone will
will.
understand. Very interesting thing is like, so I recently read by this article by a designer, and he said like how much even the sun cut, like through the shadows and the sunlight changes with every region. Okay, so whatever sun that we are
Okay.
seeing in India, you will see the different sunlight in UK, you will see different sunlight in Canada,
Right.
right? So even like a very universal global thing has different
Variations.
nuance, right? You can't expect the same thing will work when you're communicating for a product. You want to sell something to someone, you have to talk to them in their
Their
own
language.
Yeah.
So, what is the main difference of designing online and offline?
What digital has done, so scaling up became much more easier for a smaller brand. The budget, because the advertising is not that cheap, right? So what these ads did is like you can legit measure your ad revenue with any rupees that you have spent, how much money per ad you are getting a reach. You can measure that. Beauty is the same budget which you will be applying in newspaper to target the person in Gujarat. With the same budget you can go global. So that has changed a lot of brand communication, right? What social media has done, it has given us much more applications. We only have like very standardized modes of design. You can create a reel, static is there, right? You can create like a carousel with much more content,
Right.
And because of social media, now you don't have to say one thing with one
Media.
ad. You can be with your consumer every day 24/7 and create that intimate relationship with your end user. What social media has done, if I put it like in a one sentence, it is like a human personification of your brand. It's not just about, okay, this is the function, this is your shampoo, you buy this and this is going to be good for your hair. You don't say that anymore. You have to make it more like how much this shampoo
You
will-
require, you
yeah,
need it.
it will add more value to you, your life, right? that you will look this way, you can achieve this.
These are the changes you will see.
Yeah, and it talks about more like it's talk to you more like a friend. It's your cheerleader.
Yeah.
Right, and that is what brands are trying to do. That translates through your design. What kind of colors you are setting for your brand will resonate with whoever your consumer is. So once you establish, okay, this kind of brand language I want to have, these are the keywords, these are the text copy I want my brand to be seen to my consumer, let's establish an image, right? And now whenever someone is seeing the same kind of language, same kind of colors, they will register, they will recall, okay, this is the same brand.
The dots.
Yeah. So this whole thing, whatever is happening, it's our design ecosystem, right? Now you're establishing a seamless flow, a story for your brand that will resonate with your audience, right? Whatever the product, whatever services you are providing, they will buy it anyway because you are creating that relevancy.
Can you give me some examples for it?
I'll start with my favorite brand in terms of design, that is Coca-Cola. Right. Now everyone knows that iconic red color of the brand. In order to understand that, we have to see like how Coca-Cola has become what they are today. For Coca-Cola, what was happening was initially they wanted to start like a very standardized cola, and that was available in different stores in USA. When the marketers came and they started like this new approach that we want to promote a brand that stands out. Okay, so first thing what they did was, of course there is a logo, right? Second is they designed a very iconic, a very unique bottle for them, right? So Coca-Cola has this very defined bottle shape, right? So even though there are a lot of different products are there in terms of beverages, soda, cola,
it stands out.
It stands out, yeah. It's been over 100 years for the brand. They have not changed their logo.
I know.
Right.
And they're still like leading in the market.
Yeah. So they're just trying to evolve somewhat the same fonts, but keeping that spirit, that cursive fonts. Yeah. Even this, because they have been registered, the brand colors and the shapes have been registered in our mind so much, even though there is no logo, you understand this is Coke.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So that is what the brand, because have been relevant since over 100 years. Right? You don't have to tell that this is Coca-Cola. How much branding is important. There was an experiment with a bunch of people in a room. So they blindfolded all these people and gave them Coke and Pepsi.
Okay.
Now everyone drank both the things. Majority of them liked Pepsi. Right? That Pepsi was better. They did not know which one which.
Right.
But when they asked them which one is their favorite brand, everyone said Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay.
Right. So difference is Pepsi of course has more sugar content, so we tend to like it more.
Okay.
But the branding for Coca-Cola is so good, it makes you feel that you are having something good.
Okay.
Right?
Feel good.
It feels good. Yeah. That is the same funda with Burger King, McDonald's, why they are focusing a lot more on the experience through branding. If you get the same burger in like a very local shop which has no branding,
you don't get that feel.
Yeah, you don't find it very tasty, right?
But the same thing, if you go into other thing and you eat it, it's like an experience.
You perceive it to be tasty.
It looks very yummy.
Yeah, and that is what branding, that is what designing does.
Correct.
It translates the whole experience. One more brand that I can think of which has changed the how we perceive like advertising in general, shifted the lens for how we can talk about brand without actually talking about it. What Nike did with Air Jordan, right?
Yeah.
So Nike was not that famous back in the days, right? They were very much into the running shoes and apparels. They wanted to get into the sports segment. The basketball was a big thing in USA, and they approached like a very much of a rookie NBA player called Michael Jordan. Right? Somehow they got him on board, signed a deal that shifted the way we approach like a brand ambassadors. The regulations for NBA player was you can't wear a shoes with a red color in it.
Yeah, you have to pay a fine on it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the shoe, the Air Jordan has red in it.
So every time they
They play,
have played, they have
to
paid
pay
fine.
$5,000,
Yeah.
and they did that.
And back then it was a big deal. Like,
Say any marketing is good marketing, even though it's negative, and that is what happened with Nike, right? That because there were regulations, and again we love when there is a revolt, right? They went ahead and broke the rule, and they did it fantastically with a beautiful shoe that gave sneaker product design this kick, and it defined the new segment in shoe design.
yes.
In terms of design evolution, what has been like a trend so far in history and right now as well. So these all things are kind of interconnected. So whenever there is a breakthrough in any discipline, kind of like a ripple effect through whole ecosystem of design. So what Nike did, right? They started doing like a great things with shoe designing that also kind of reflected in their advertising. What Steve Jobs has done with Macintosh, right? They introduced the whole system. The PC was not like a new thing. Windows was already there.
It's
right?
just like breaking up the stereotype and trying something out of the box. kind of stuff.
Yeah. So before like Macintosh, the PC, the monitors were very huge.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
It was not. It was kind of like an ugly design. The aesthetics were not there. Right. It felt like you're operating something on a very larger scale,
Yes.
and it was very intimidating. What Apple did was it made it feel something you can handle.
Yeah.
You want to design, it kind of motivates you to design. Same thing they did in terms of function and aesthetics with iPhone, because at the end of the day, whoever is buying that product, they are buying it for the function, but it has to look good,
Yes.
right? The product design has to appeal in a way. The phone was supposed to be something that you will carry around, you will use it every day 24/7. It can't be ugly, right? It has to look good, and the function is of course the major part of it, but these both things came in together, and that made like a huge shift to what we were doing in product design, and also like in terms of advertising. So this is like a very practical example of what we do in UI UX. You need to research of what kind of people you're targeting, who is going to be the person who's going to use your website, what kind of people will be navigating through your software or through your application, right? So the research has to be done well. It has to create somewhat a story that okay, you go on a home page, get certain information, and then you navigate to the relevant information to the relevant page. It can't be just buttons and names and random jargons. You have to understand the language as well.
So, how dependent is social media on designing, and what kind of influence do designing make on the success of social media?
Because now we are constantly in touch with technology through our phones, through our iPad, TVs, and everywhere we see there are LED screens.
Right.
So we are getting bombarded with a lot of information. Maybe we are interested in some, maybe we are not, but we are still getting those information, and because of that we get used to these bombarding, right? And our attention span is getting lower. So now whenever you are talking to your consumer, with the first glance you have to grab the attention. If you don't do that, then you have missed your mark, right? Now with social media, because that has become like a trend, that you have to be very much on the face, and just right away from the get-go you have to tell what you want to tell. You can't wait for someone to be interested in your product and then know about it. What happens with this kind of approach is your branding, your colors, your fonts, everything has to be on point, that whenever that person is seeing while not seeing it, it still register in your brain. The funda of ad started with a very static and one short thing. with internet, with social media, what happened was the biggest change was the motion graphics. Right? So now whatever the icons, whatever the shapes, whatever the forms you were using in a static, you can do like much more dynamic stuff. You can give them anticipation through your design. If you see all the deodorant ad, right? Every time there is this, the sense of it is a guy is there. If you're using this deo, you will get all the girls, right? That is not gonna happen,
Yeah.
right? But
The
we are doing.
showcasing is such that automatically you will feel as if that you have to apply this perfume.
Yeah, like it will add some value, and because you're using it, the
Automatically your
trust,
aura and
the
will be
confidence you have
Will be
that
changed.
okay, now I am looking good, I feel good in my skin.
Just boosting the confidence to the next level.
Yeah, and that level of anticipation you have to give to your user,
Right.
and that happens through your motion graphics, through your video ads, right? That you create that valuation in your product, in your service, right? Nothing is stationary anymore. Everything is dynamic,
Right.
right? You, whatever the typos that you're using, you're not putting it just right away. You're giving it an anticipation. You're revealing what, basically you're creating a hierarchy of information through animation.
How is AI impacting the field of design? And do you see it as a challenge or it is like a positive impact?
I guess there are
Both?
two sides of
Two-way
yeah,
effects?
yeah. Actually, the approach has changed a lot. Very basic information that you want to communicate to your audience on your social media, on website or wherever, that became very much automated. Right? And what it has done is like because designing somewhat can be expensive for small scale brands.
Right.
Small scale businesses does not have that much capability to reach to masses that quickly. So how do they do that? How do they start like on a very regular note and then gradually upscale in terms of advertising?
Right.
That is what Canva did
Right.
for these small scale businesses.
You don't need to keep a designer for it. You already
Yeah.
have templates and you just have to use it and
Yeah.
reframe it and you're ready. The post is ready.
Yeah, and so that again you have to understand like it is giving power to the layman, right?
Yes.
You don't have to, because design is not something like the fundamentals, what is alignment, what is the balance. These all requires a lot of time, lot of practices,
Correct.
right? So if you are designing something from the scratch, you don't know where to start. What Canva did, it gave you the benchmark. You have a certain layout, you have this copy, you have this image, you can replace it, you can change the fonts, you can change the colors according to what your brand is trying to communicate through branding. You don't have to worry about all these fundamentals, all these principles.
And you just have to focus on your content basically.
Yeah.
Remaining everything is taken care by AI. You
Yeah.
just focus on your content and you're through with it.
Especially like when you are dealing with a ad firm or a
Yes.
designer, you have to give them the brief, what
Yeah,
they want to
totally.
say. The designer will work on the designs, layouts and everything. Again, there will be back and forth that okay, this is something I want to say, this thing is not working.
Working,
Maybe
and so
make the
on.
logo bigger.
Yeah.
And these all things are there. With
So
Canva,
with AI,
this
everything gets sorted and it becomes quicker, it becomes easy,
Yeah.
more accessible. You can do it whatever time, whenever you want to do it, 24/7, whenever you're
Yeah.
free. All such benefits you get.
Yeah, definitely. That
Yes.
again, as you said,
Yeah.
24/7, because manpower
Yes,
is somewhat
totally.
limited.
Yes, yes.
Labor intensive designing is getting divided with AI, and then there is this pro segment that okay, this is something I have to define for a new brand.
Right.
So then that is when you need like someone who is pro in graphic designing. But when you already have like a brand manual, when you already have a corporate identity, all you have to do is take the colors, take the fonts, and then take whatever the AI tool you have and create a layout, create a design, or maybe even a reel. Right? With this, one more major thing, again, you have to understand this is like the positive side of it. What can be kind of a negative thing is that somewhat it removes mediocrity.
Yeah.
right?
So human will be replaced basically. That is the negative impact. maybe.
Not all actually. So what happens is like, let's say, because
If you're
being
best of
a-
all, you will not be replaced.
yeah, like so basically being expert at
Yes.
something, you have to pick your genre. That okay, this is something. If I'm good at packaging design, I will design the best packaging for any brand, any brief, and that is something not anyone can replicate.
Correct.
With AI, what is happening is there is data, there is a lot of thing already on the internet, already existing in the real world. It is taking a reference out of it and creating something new.
Right.
With human, the approach is there is an emotion, there is a brief, which is a real time thing that you convert, you understand, you process, and then design something.
Out of your imagination.
Yeah,
And with AI, it's all like, what is the Google search and everything, whatever information
That
you
is
have on
more
the internet, it's
reference
only
driven.
Yeah, reference driven. Correct.
Yeah, and when it's human, there is more emotion involved,
Correct.
right? So what happens with AI is the very mundane stuff, the very basic designs that we do. We need people that is gonna get removed from the funnel, right? What Adobe has done, what generative AI has done, images, the videos, right? It will help you because not everyone has the capability get a photo shoot done, product shoot done, right? So how do you get like an ad done with a very professional looking photograph?
Correct.
So with these apps,
With minimal cost.
yeah, again every time when there is an evolution of certain uh, in terms of anything,
Yes.
the regulations come in later, that okay, this is something that could go wrong.
Yes.
So now we have to do some regulatory
Right.
things to restrict certain,
Things.
copy plagiarism is also very much happening because of digital age.
Very true.
So that also will gradually will be happening with AI as well. So that I guess it's a good route we are going,
Okay.
and maybe a lot of good things will happen.
Yes.
With since I guess Google is also developing their own AI for
AI.
video, and yeah, this
I think it will be an exciting journey.
yeah the evolution keep on
Yes.
happening, and the
And
applications
the only
will,
best part is that you have to accept the change, and and you have to embrace it.
yeah, change is constant.
Yes, exactly. The only thing which is constant is change. Right?
Yeah.
What is the next big thing in designing, and what are the emerging prospects which is exciting?
I say sustainable design is gonna be the next.
What do you mean by sustainable design?
So the thing is like we have been doing like a lot of packaging, labeling on products, right? Newspapers. This is all kind of like revolving around how much we can produce the paper, right? How much we can get like if there is a plastic involved in any way on beverages, right? On packaging, those all things are creating somewhat a huge amount of carbon footprint.
Correct.
Right, and that is, of course, it's not good for the environment.
Correct.
So how we work towards with design, how do we design a product in a way, how do we plan your strategy for advertising in a way that will be very consciously helping the environment. Okay, so that is going to be something which is like a very big factor for designing moving forward. What happens with, if you must have seen like a lot of devices, lot of applications, lot of website browsers and everyone started using dark mode, night mode, right? So what is that thing? So there was a research on Google that was any technical device, say phone, iPad or anything, right? The more whites it has, there will be more carbon footprint. The more darker shades, the more blacks it involves in design, the carbon footprint will be less. It's not a significant thing, but if you think globally, if we implement this, this is going to save up a lot of energy, right? So that is one thing in design that changed the way. Now we are seeing much more darker shades, like brands using black colors, blue colors.
Right.
So that is somewhat is like a very exciting thing that we are starting to be
Focusing on.
more conscious towards the environment. A lot of brands are coming up. Recently, I guess Coke did. What they did was they removed the label of Sprite from the bottle.
Mhm.
Okay, so because of that, the bottle already have somewhat very good relevancy.
Yes.
You can identify, okay, this is the
Very easily.
beverage in this. You don't have to say it.
Showcase
The
it
cap already have the branding.
via- Yes.
You don't have to hammer it with a plastic label. So you're not creating much
But
more.
were they able to like achieve whatever they wanted to?
They like in general brands are trying to how much we can get sustainable, how much we can be more conscious towards
So
the
they have
environment.
that consciousness basically in their mind
Yeah,
that we should do something for our
yeah,
global aspect as well.
yeah. Like it's somewhat of a new trend, I say, but it's even if it's a trend, there is a good reason.
Yeah,
there is
definitely.
It's
for a
a
good
nice
cause.
thought, right? That we are becoming more conscious toward environment. Capitalism in general was supposed to be something which is be selfish,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
We want to sell
Totally.
something, we want to get
Yes.
more money made, so we will do whatever we can to get that done. But now when we are incorporating sustainability in capitalism, I feel that it's going to be something of a new
And don't you think it's a win-win situation? Because you're getting profit at the same time, you are not even harming your environment. So it's like a win-win situation.
I mean, a lot many brands has to take that initiative, has to be more conscious when they are planning a marketing strategy, right? I guess McDonald's or Burger King also recently did like a packaging that was much more environment friendly, right? That you don't have to use like a plastic,
Maybe
but
steps,
maybe
correct.
like a removing
Yeah,
a
totally.
plastic straw from your beverage. Again, maybe it's
Small thing make big impacts.
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how much impact there will be, but at least we
can
are
at least
trying.
try it, yeah.
Yeah. So that is something good. But again, in this case, also we have to consider that how much sustainable the approach of sustainability is. So what I mean by that is like, so there are certain products which require certain kind of metal, right? Certain kind of elements in it, which may be harmful to environment. So what we do, we replace it with something which is not that harmful. But then again, we have to consider how much lifespan it has. If a product or a design does not have that much of durability, you're getting much more demand of something which is less harmful, but the demand is high. So even though you're creating like a smaller lifespan, the higher lifespan product which was more harmful maybe in a long term can be beneficial to environment. That these also are the somewhat factors that we'll have to consider. It's like a new thing only, so we
Yeah,
don't know
totally.
what's gonna happen. And design is something that influences a lot of ideas, right? It can change.
Everything.
It can change a decision of an election. Okay,
Yes.
like in USA, when I guess Bush was elected, right, there was a tie. The graphic designer who designed the EVM for the United States messed up, and the design was so complicated. Everyone ended up a very liberal state ended up voting for a conservative president.
Yes.
That can't happen. But the design was so complicated, everyone was confused and everyone voted for Bush.
Yeah.
So
Simple
how
is better.
much? Yeah. So how much design can impact like a huge entire nation with a small mistake? So these kind of things are, of course, we'll have to take account of that how much impact we are creating on environment, on politics, on people's life through design, through branding, right? So I guess, and that is happening. People are getting more aware of these kind of things. People are getting more, and I feel like we are learning every
Yes,
day.
you are.
So let's hope we do something much more good.
Yeah.
Maybe one way or another we'll find a way to save the planet.
Totally. And we all should, I guess.